The FBI is vetting the National Guard troops that's going to be covering the inauguration, doing the security there. The FBI is vetting them because they don't trust that one of them won't pop off somehow crazy, right? Well, this is really interesting because you have these agencies that effectively train people to carry guns, enforce some authority, possibly kill someone. You train them that far, and then you don't know them well enough that the FBI has to vet them after the fact. And this isn't just the National Guard, this is the military. You know, we still see military people after they get out totally going off the rails, doing awful crap, and people act like, oh, we had no idea. Really? After you trained this guy to kill human beings, you had no idea he would do that? So that's a problem. And then it just extends to law enforcement. So I imagine that in the military that you're vetted a little bit. Like, they'll look at you and be like, yeah, there's something off with this guy. Let's make a file, at least. But with the police, you're not going to see that. You're going to see crazy people get dumb, just whatever person is given a gun, given the authority to enforce laws, and good luck. We'll figure out the lawsuits later. There needs to be some kind of standard, a national, like a federal standard for vetting people who are trained to kill humans and enforce some authority. Now, we're supposed to have this. Some places do. Like, nobody can just say, oh, I'm a security guard now, and then you can do security. I mean, you have to have some kind of something that says you're qualified, right? I hope. And that's the problem, because I don't know for sure. It doesn't feel like that exists. So if it does, it's not working, and it looks like it doesn't exist. So you maybe get something that says I could be a security guard, or I can be a correction officer, or I can be a police officer. But in reality, it's only part of that, because they're still not vetted. And the FBI vetting the National Guard just to make sure, I'm not comfortable with that. I feel like that should be happening all the time, don't you? Like, not just National Guard, but the Army and the police. It's telling. It's really telling, isn't it? This is the whole reason why people were protesting last summer, was because they felt like their police officers weren't maybe qualified to be police officers, and there was no way to get rid of these people or identify them, or, because they weren't vetted. So this pretty much is a justification for everything that went on last summer, that the FBI has to vet the National Guard. Really interesting. Let's see what's next here. Information is like nutrients for your brain. And not all information is good for your brain. Some information is wrong, it's not reliable. And then when you put it in your brain and start acting on it, then everything falls apart. So it's important that in addition to putting good things in our body, like nutritious food, we need to put good things in our brain, like reliable information. This is a function of being a critical thinker. And critical thinking skills are something that some people have them naturally, but by and large, it's something that you need to learn to do. And we're not taught it in school. People just don't have strong critical thinking skills. My peers absolutely do not have critical thinking skills, by and large. That's what I've seen in my experience in almost 50 years. My peers just take in information and go with it. They trust that somebody else has done the hard work of vetting that information, and then they just take their word for it, which is interesting because it's kind of counter to everything else in their world, but we'll just go with that for now. The president has been deplatformed. Do I agree with that? No. I think that was wrong. That's the wrong approach. When we start doing that, what we're saying is that people are too dumb to know for themselves, to take care of themselves. So the nanny state has to take over and do that for them. That's what this is when we deplatform people. Because if you had a citizenry that was well educated, well set up, that were doing well like they're supposed to, then you're not going to have this problem where somebody says some crazy things and people believe it. Someone's going to say crazy things and everybody's going to have the critical thinking skills to say, you know what, that's not reliable information. I'm just going to disregard that. And then people are free to say whatever they want, wherever they want, to whoever they want, because everybody will either listen to it or not based on whether it's logically sound, it has empirical evidence, and it's repeatable. We don't have that now. And I think that's why we're in the state of affairs. You know, I've said this for decades. As a matter of fact, I was saying this when I was in school, that we are not spending enough on education in this country. When I went to high school, I went to a very small town, community school. It didn't have the programs that I wanted to go into. I wasn't able to take chemistry, which I wanted to take. The computer math program was a joke. I had 3 years of it, and 2 of those years was without a teacher, because they didn't have anybody that could teach me. I was learning on my own. That's how terrible the education system was when I was growing up. And now we're reaping the results of that deficiency. We've got hordes of people who can't think for themselves, who want to take the word of some crazy person, want to deny all the evidence for whatever crazy reasons that they have. This is where we're at. And I could see it coming. It's like, if we don't take care of this, we're going to run into problems, lots of problems. And I wasn't the only one. I think The Simpsons did an episode on it, where people were dumb, weren't educated. You know, we didn't invest in education in schools, and then when they got to be adults, they were like bungling. Sound familiar? So this is what happens. And if you're wanting to shut people down, if you're wanting to censor people, then you have to have a reason or an excuse. And the reason is that people are acting out on this information, so we have to shut that information down. Well, people can act out on information in positive ways if they have critical thinking skills. But you want to shut people down, whoever you are or they are. If you want to shut people down, you don't educate them. You make them susceptible to propaganda, and then you just go from there. It becomes the justification. So everything that is working against us boils down to the lack of opportunities that people had when they were young, when they were in school, and when they were trying to learn how to be reasonable adults. So my peers, they got the short end of the stick, let me tell you. When I started in school, they were already cutting funding left and right. And schools were falling into disrepair. Teachers were leaving because there wasn't any money in it. And the only people that would do it weren't the best qualified. And it snowballed from there. I got a crappy education. I'll say now, it was just awful compared to my peers in other parts of in metropolitan areas where they might have a more better funded school. I would talk to students from those schools during different, like if we had a Scholar Bowl or whatever it was, you'd talk to those kids and be like, oh yeah, we have this, and this. And I'm looking at my school, I'm like, what the hell? Why does this place exist? This is a joke. This isn't helping anybody. This is barely qualifying. Now repeat that tens of thousands of times across America for an entire generation of people, and this is where we're at. How do we get people who are my age, who are hardwired, who are pretty much baked in many ways, how do we get these people to develop critical thinking skills, to start the hard work that they should have been doing when they were kids? Well, that's not going to happen. You're not going to get these people to think critically unless you just say it over and over and over again, and the critical thinkers put pressure on the people who aren't critical thinkers. It's like, up your game. You need to up your game. This is what you do. This is how you do it. Learn about rhetorical fallacies. Learn about how arguments are formulated. Learn about identifying problems versus solutions, which is That's the major problem, is that we can't identify the problem. We address solutions and the problem just continues. We need to get people on this page of being better thinkers. I hate to say it, but we're dumb. People in this country are dumb. You know it, I know it, and the proof is right there for everyone to see. If you haven't seen the New Yorker's cut of the Capitol invasion, I encourage you to watch that. Be prepared. It will be the stupidest thing you've ever seen in your life. And I know people throw that around, but this was just, I don't know, just an endless series of irony and cognitive dissonance, the likes of which you've never seen in your life. So watch that. Get a sense of how far apart a person is in their brain from what's actually going on, and then try to work out how that happened. It's complicated. It doesn't just start with last 4 years. This started decades and decades ago. This started in the 70s when I was a child, among my peers, when we weren't given the resources that we need. And this is just continuing. More and more generations of children, thank God, they're growing up now where they're having to take more self-agency in their learning because of the nature of things nowadays. So maybe that will teach kids that, hey, I can learn on my own. I can find things out on my own. This is how I do it. This is why I do it. And maybe there's hope. But right now, my generation, I feel like, is completely lost. There are maybe half as many people that are solid in their critical thinking, and then the other half that's not. And that's why you have such divisiveness, is because it is so close. So that needs to be not so close. That needs to be overwhelming. We need an overwhelming majority of people who are critical thinkers, not just half, because then we get this problem we have today. So that's what I wanted to say about censorship and why this is just going to get uglier, because like I said, my generation's lost, and you're going to be the ones that are going to drive the government into locking down these platforms so that people get silenced. So congratulations. Keep taking in information and not vetting it. And take this in, and I hope you vet it. Good luck with this one. Until next time, take care.